Silent Hill 2, a game not only considered by many of the fans as the best game in the entire series, but also one of the greatest survival horror games of all time. Taking what they had built up from the first game and then refining it into an absolute masterpiece, Silent Hill 2 is said to have set the standard for many survival horror games to come. I have only recently just gotten into the Silent Hill series, the only game that I've finished so far being the first one, and since finishing that game, I've been pretty excited to check out the second one due to the massive amount of praise surrounding it. Ah yes, Silent Hill, the series that made people whenever they see fog say, "Damn bro, are we in Silent Hill?"
Shut up, dickhead.
Okay. Silent Hill is a series created by Team Silent, a team of developers working under Konami that were responsible for creating the first 4 Silent Hill games, also known as by the fans as the only 4 Silent Hill games. The series is of course set around the mysterious rural town of Silent Hill, an ordinary town at first glance, albeit a little bit foggy, but upon further inspection you'll quickly realize that this town is kinda fucked, not gonna lie, like look at this shit. What? Although this game is the second installment in the series, Silent Hill 2 has little to no connections to the first game story-wise, meaning that if you wanted to get into the series, Silent Hill 2 in my opinion is the best game to start off with, since not only do you not have to worry about what happens in the previous game to understand the story, but the gameplay is a lot more fleshed out than the first game, making for a much smoother first experience with the series. But that's enough of me talking about the game, why don't we go ahead and play it, shall we? In Silent Hill 2, you play as James Sunderland, who comes to the town of Silent Hill after receiving a letter from his wife Mary, who strangely enough passed away 3 years ago from a terminal disease. In the letter, Mary details about how much she loved the town of Silent Hill, and how she is now waiting there for James in their special place. Right off the bat, I have to say that I really love the game's intro. Although it doesn't seem like much as it's basically a still image, this intro scene does a great job at setting you up for all that's what's to come, especially paired with the melancholic tone of the music and the fog that looms across the screen as James narrates his thoughts to the player. The intro may be very simple, but it is also extremely memorable. But with that little intro out of the way, we move off to go search for our dead wife. Silent Hill 2 takes after the same formula that the first game had. You go to a location somewhere around the town, you explore the entire place searching for puzzles to solve and key items to pick up, all while fighting the many monsters that roam around the town. You have a variety of weapons that you can use to defend yourself, such as your melee weapons, which consists of mainly junk you found lying around, and you also have access to firearms, some of them having more limited ammo than others depending on how powerful the weapon is. That being said, I have personally never ran out of ammo during my playthrough, but I'd imagine if I was playing on hard where enemies take 1,000 shots to kill, that would be something I'd probably worry about. Admittedly though, the combat is a bit clunky. Every time you do something like swing or fire your weapon, it takes James a second or two for him to be able to move again, which is not a huge deal for most of the game, but during the boss battles however, the clunkiness really shows since you'll have to do a lot of running and gunning in those situations. There is also no heads-up display in the game, so to check how much health you have left, you'll have to go into your inventory and check the screenshot that changes color depending on how much health you have left. Green of course means that you're healthy, normal color means that you're hurt, and red means, if you don't know the answer to that, then I don't know what to tell you, you're fucking dying. That being said though, you don't really need to constantly check your health since the game also flashes a red cross on the bottom right of the screen whenever you are close to dying. So yeah, basically heal whenever you see that pop up. But aside from fighting off enemies, there are also many puzzles that you can find throughout Silent Hill. Solving them either rewards you with extra items, but most are required for you to advance in the game. Many of the puzzles you can find also come with a hint on how to solve them in the form of a riddle. The difficulty of the riddles being dependent on what you set them to before you start the game. I actually had a lot of fun figuring out the riddles. Not only do they make many of the puzzles extremely memorable, but despite how challenging the riddles were at times, I personally thought that they were all very well written and I never felt like I needed to search up a walkthrough at any point in time to understand them. One of the things that I really love about the Silent Hill series are how they do their maps. Bringing up your map, of course, not only helps you navigate the area, but it also keeps track of what rooms you've already entered, what doors you can or cannot open, and it also marks down where the puzzles are located. This, of course, makes it easier to know which areas you haven't explored yet and stops you from wasting time backtracking. As we continue to search around the town looking for our dead wife, my wife, we are introduced to a few interesting and mysterious characters along the way. We first got Angela, who you meet before entering the town, Eddie, who you find you good? And we have Laura, the little fucking brat. What most of the characters that you meet have in common, though, is that something brought them to the town of Silent Hill in one way or another. Whether they are like James, who have come to the town to search for someone, or they are here trying to get away from something. Oh yeah, now that I'm thinking about it, Eddie, how the hell did you get pizza in this town full of monsters? I do not get paid enough for this. One of the more important characters that we meet throughout the game is this woman named Maria, whose name is not only similar to James's wife, but she also looks very much like her as well. Shortly after you meet her, she then follows you around the town, with us now acting as her protector. I wonder if friendly fire's on. Well, that answers my question. Sorry. Admittedly, the voice acting in Silent Hill 2 is, not the greatest? I don't know, many of the voice lines sound like the actors didn't know what they were going for, and the tone of their voices tend to be inconsistent at times. Angela pretty much being a prime example of this.
You said your wife Mary was dead, right?
Yes. She was ill.
Liar!
That being said, I personally thought that the best voice acting in this game goes to both James and Maria.
I'll wait here. I hate bowling.
I take it back, you bitch! And finally, this random game show host who screams at you inside of the elevator.
Hey there, everybody!
Man, I love this guy! A common theme within the Silent Hill series is that as you continue to explore a certain location, you will eventually be transported to a place called the Otherworld, which is basically a parallel version of the town where everything looks more gritty and nightmarish. What's interesting about the Otherworld is that one of the things that you find out about it is that the Otherworld looks different for every character and is filled with things that symbolizes something about their backstories and mental state. Speaking of that, symbolism plays a huge part in this game. In fact, it is how the game mainly presents its story. Silent Hill 2's narrative is not incredibly in your face, and a lot of the times during your first playthrough, you may even be confused on what the hell is going on, especially with how trippy the game can be. From the enemies, puzzles, and different locations that you visit, all of these things symbolize something about James or even the other characters that you meet, which I found this to be an extremely cool and unique way of storytelling, and I found myself getting very invested in learning about what the meaning behind every little thing in the game. Of course, you can't talk about Silent Hill without mentioning its incredible sound design and extremely memorable soundtrack. Like, you know, the sounds of you throwing a brick inside of a dryer? Now that's the good shit! For real though, from the ambient sounds of you exploring the fog-ridden town, to the trippy sounds of exploring the Otherworld, the game even occasionally throws in some calm yet chilling tracks, which is a nice contrast when compared to all of the weird shit that you hear while going through the game. One of the more iconic and scariest experiences in the game is when you encounter the creature known as Pyramid Head. You first encounter Pyramid Head after hearing a scream down the hallways while exploring the apartments. Upon investigating the scream, you will then find Pyramid Head standing behind a set of bars, staring at you menacingly. You will be pursued by Pyramid Head multiple times throughout the game, acting as both a boss to even becoming a general enemy in certain areas. Not only is Pyramid Head pretty much invulnerable, but he also deals a fuck ton of damage. Thankfully though, he can be pretty easy to evade, especially outside of boss battles, but that doesn't change how intimidating he can be. What the fuck? What the fuck? You're a cunt! You can later on pick up his weapon, which does an incredible amount of damage, at the cost of you moving super slowly while holding it out. But who even needs speed when you've got all this power? Alright, Teddy, you little bitch, it's all over for you. Well, that was a lot easier than I expected. What the fuck was that? A few things that Silent Hill 2 did was fix some of the problems I had with the first game, such as making the puzzles and riddles much easier to understand, as well as making the Otherworld not as samey. I guess the only problem I can really think of outside of the clunky combat is the fact that the camera controls are, garbage. The way you control the camera is by holding down the L2 button, but for some reason when you do that, the camera tends to point at the ceiling, and before you ask, no, you can't control the camera using the right thumbstick while holding down the L2 button. I don't know why that isn't a thing, but hey, I guess it is what it is, I guess. But anyway, to get you up to speed with what has happened so far, we meet and chase after a little girl named Laura who claims to know Mary. We suspect that Mary is at the Lakeside Hotel waiting for us. We get chased by Pyramid Head and loser Maria in the process. Don't worry, she does pop up again to tell us about a tape that James forgot about at the hotel. And then she dies again. We jump through a bunch of holes a few times. Nice. And finally, we take a calm boat ride to the Lakeside Hotel. Considering all the crazy bullshit that has happened so far, this is kinda nice. I guess I've forgotten what it's like for things to be peaceful. This is very nice. Oh god, what the fuck? Just like the first Silent Hill, Silent Hill 2 features multiple endings. Unlike the first game though, where you are required to complete certain quests to gain access to different endings, how Silent Hill 2's ending system works depends on what you do throughout the game. For example, one of the endings that you can get requires you to frequently examine the knife Angela gives you early on in the game, as well as have you try and keep your health in the red status as much as possible. But anyway, as we finish exploring the hotel, we find the tape that James forgot about. Upon playing the tape, it is revealed that Mary didn't actually die 3 years ago from her disease, and it turns out that James killed her himself moments prior to the game's events. James and Mary were once in a loving relationship until one day Mary became affected by her illness. As her illness developed, Mary started to become stressed and mentally unstable, often lashing out at James, putting a strain on their relationship. Eventually, Mary was allowed to return home from the hospital, and that is when James decided to kill her. The reason why James doesn't remember any of this is due to him repressing the memory of ever killing her, which leads us back to the start of the game, with James returning to Silent Hill, the last place that the couple were happy together. James, now remembering what he has done, decides to put an end to this nightmare, facing off with the Pyramid Heads one last time, before finally facing off with Maria. After defeating her, the game ends there. Silent Hill 2 was absolutely incredible. I was amazed by its atmosphere, music, and especially its unique way of storytelling, and although it suffered from having clunky combat and wonky camera controls, they weren't so bad that it totally ruined my experience with the game. I ended up going back to play it again on stream recently, and I had just as much fun playing it as I did the first time, and I can't wait to go through the game once more to try and hopefully get the rest of the endings. After completing the game, I can now understand why people hype it up so much, and honestly, I totally agree with them. Even going as far as saying that Silent Hill 2 is one of my favorite horror games of all time, and although it hasn't scared me as much as other horror games, I did feel like it left a lasting impression on me. And for a game that was released over 20 years ago as of me recording this video, I honestly believe that it still holds up to this day, and I think that everyone should give this game a try at least once. But anyway, I think that's all I wanted to say about this game, so thank you all for watching the video. I hope you all enjoyed it, and I hope to catch you all in the next one. Bye-bye.